Welcome to the official MJM's Euro 2020 group stage reaction and knockout predictions. So in this video, I'm going to be going through all of my predictions I have made for all the group stage rounds and all of the groups, seeing where I went wrong, where we got some correct and incorrect, and then finally going through the knockout predictions and making judgments based on not only today's games and the round of 16 games, however, also predicting the quarterfinals, semifinals, and through to the finals. So let's get right into it. Starting out with Group A, I initially predicted Italy to finish first, Turkey in second, Switzerland in third, and Wales in fourth. Now this is one of the 6 groups that I think I actually did the worst on, and it sucks that it's the first group to pick. However, judging the points, it really wasn't too bad of a pick. Italy was 7. I figured they'd finish top of the group, and in the actual predictions and what actually happened, Italy did exactly what they were meant to do. They showed up, they dominated possession, they created a lot of chances, scored goals, while also not conceding very many. I believe they only conceded 1 goal through the whole group stage. So for them, very good job, well done. The issue comes, though, where Turkey and Wales for me are flipped. So I thought Turkey would come out, as many people did, thinking they would be dark horses and that they would get quite far with their amount of youth, with a good amount of depth, but also having some talented players. And everything fell flat from them, starting with the game with Italy, straight through the rest of the group. And it is the issue when you go into major tournaments. They do have the youngest squad at the Euros, and there can become issues where you have a bunch of young players who aren't experienced, who aren't ready for that next stage, and everything fell flat for them. Wales, on the other hand, did catch me by surprise. I did not think that they would finish with 4 points, and even though they could have beaten the Swiss, realistically thinking about it, I didn't think that they beat Turkey. I didn't think they beat Italy. And against the Swiss, I didn't think they would do that good of a job. So I had them on 0 points. Obviously, they ended up qualifying and making it in along with the Swiss. So it wasn't the best predicted group for me, but I can see where things could have changed. So moving on to Group B. Up to the 3rd match day, I was quite concerned, seeing as Denmark, Russia, and Finland were kind of all over the place in terms of standings. Belgium comfortably did what I expected them to do, and they won all 3 games. They should easily be beating all 3 of those teams, without a doubt. The issue came where Denmark, especially after Eriksen's sudden injury, heart attack, especially after that had happened, I didn't think Denmark would actually do as good as they did, and it's good karma in a way to still see them progress on the knockout rounds, especially seeing the side of the bracket that they are on. But simply for this group, I didn't predict it that great, not that bad, still got the top 2 correct. So that's the main thing, is getting the right teams progressing in the right spots. But for the rest of the group, it wasn't the worst, wasn't the best. Now, moving on to Group C, where we absolutely smashed it. All 4 teams, perfect positions, perfect amount of points. Just the perfect group. Wasn't the hardest one, realistically, to predict. Netherlands should always be beating the 3 teams beneath them. North Macedonia realistically shouldn't. Well, they should be there, but they shouldn't be competing against any of the teams above them. So it's really deciding if Austria and Ukraine will end up drawing, and it goes to goal difference, or if Austria wins, Ukraine wins. That's pretty much the only situation that we do have. Netherlands pretty comfortably won their group. There was a little stumble at the start, I want to say, especially missing De Bruyne. I think he was a big influence on that team in the first game, not being there. But besides that, I think everyone played kind of expected to how they were. Ukraine were decent. They still ended up getting through. The only thing I didn't get technically correct is I didn't expect them to go through, as the blue dots there in the middle are the teams that I predicted to go through. Didn't expect them to make it through on 3 points. They ended up doing it. Fair play to them. However, I'm still happy with this group. Nothing to complain here. So now moving on to Group D. Quite like Group C. Group B. Up until the third match day was not looking good for predictions. Still didn't end up perfect. But England did finish on 7, which is good because I thought they might end up with 7. I thought it'd be a draw to Croatia. However, they ended up drawing to Scotland. I don't still know how that happened. Croatia didn't really quite turn up until the last game. For them, I don't know how far they'll go into the knockout rounds, and what we'll talk about later with the knockout predictions. But they're one of the only teams where they did finish in second, but in a different group. And I think if it was in a group with a little more talent, not to take anything away from Scotland or Czech Republic, but if they were in a group with 2 teams of decent talent, I don't think they'd actually go through. And I think with the team they have, they should be doing a lot better. But outside of that, I mean, England looked a bit sketchy, to say the least. Drawing against Scotland was not good. Although they do still have the talent. Harry Kane needs to start scoring. Especially if he wants to move to Man City, he will have to start scoring. But outside of that, there's not that much. Czech Republic kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I didn't think they put up any points. But again, they did decent, and they almost just barely did enough to finish second in that group, and it's unfortunate that they couldn't, but yeah, these things happen. It's soccer, and the good news is that they both ended up qualifying, so nothing that bad said for the Czech Republic. Now on to Group E, the flip-flop group for me. Didn't get any of the teams correct. So that is a lovely group. This is by far the worst group I predicted. And debatably the toughest group to predict. This along with Group F a little bit. But with this group you have 3 teams that are all good. Solid teams. You have one really good team in Spain. Before the tournament, obviously. And then you have 2 decent, good teams. And then Slovakia they could do something. But you never know, right? With smaller teams. So, I had Spain, Sweden, Poland, and Slovakia. In that order. Spain, for me, along with Turkey, are in there for biggest disappointments of the Euros so far. I know they beat Slovakia 5-0. I get it. They can score. But if I'm going to base it off the first 2 games, where you drew against Sweden and drew against Poland, and didn't play good, and, you know, even though they dominated possession, especially against Sweden, I think was the first game where they had like 85% possession. When you dominate a game like that, you need to score. You can dominate the ball all you want, but if you can't score, it means nothing. And for me, Spain might be a team that could struggle in the knockout rounds. Again, we'll talk about that later. But, yeah, Sweden topping the group was a bit of a surprise. They do good, but I didn't think 7-point good. Slovakia still picked up 3 points, which was quite big for them. And Poland's not that great either. I thought they would at least qualify in third. I know you have Lewandowski, you have Szczesny. You've got pieces of that team that can create like a solid foundation for the rest of the players. They just did not turn up. I know Lewandowski scored 3 goals. But with a team like that, you would expect to at least have 3 points and maybe pushing for a 4th to secure qualification, but fortunately they did not. Now, Group F. Good way of redemption for Group E and Group D is getting another 4 for 4. So that makes the second group that we've predicted that is perfect. All 4 teams in the spots. However, this one, the points aren't perfect, but the placement is. So I originally picked France, Germany, Portugal, Hungary. Finished that way. However, I thought France would finish on 7 points, assuming that they might get a draw against Germany or Portugal and then win the other game. I had figured they beat Portugal and got in revenge, and then maybe drew to Germany, beat Hungary. And weirdly enough, Hungary are my most impressive team of the Euros. And surprisingly, they're my most impressive team, but they didn't qualify for the knockout round, so it's a bit weird to say. But for me, it's unfortunate for them, the group that they are in, and where you do have to beat one of those 3 teams to make it, because generally 3 draws won't really get you in. But for going to France, playing France and drawing against them, to draw against Germany, and to only really lose to Portugal at the end of the game, for me, that is the best result you can have. With a team like that, to put up results like they did, and I believe there was a post someone had put on, it was either Instagram or Twitter, or it could even be on TikTok to be fair, of Hungary were only losing for, I believe it was like 15 minutes, or like 13 minutes, or something along those lines. So to only be losing for 13 minutes of the entire group stage to those 3 teams is there really anything else to say? They deserve to go through, but it's unfortunate, For the rest of the group, I think it kind of was quite balanced, and I kind of predicted it to be that way, with Portugal getting 4 points, Germany still being around, France being around. They all kind of played decent around each other. But I predicted all 3, France, Germany, Portugal, to go through, and luckily France, Germany, and Portugal all went through. The only issue could have came, and there was a lot of other people's predictions that saw, what happens if maybe France and Germany, one team wins outright, one team doesn't get any points. You could see a situation where only 2 teams go through, because the third of the good teams might not pick up 4 points. They might only pick up 3, they might only pick up 2. In this case, a lot of draws occurred, especially against Hungary. And I think this group went kind of how I expected it to run. So with all that being said, let's move on to the knockout rounds and see where our predictions will lie. So, for the round of 16, pay no attention to the top, I miswrote again. For the round of 16, we have Wales against Denmark, as well as Italy and Australia. Italy and Austria for the first 2 games on the first day, not Australia. So, for the first game, Wales and Denmark, I've got Denmark going through 2-1. This is one of the games that could go either way. I think Wales have enough talent going forward that you could see them score 1 or 2 against Denmark pretty comfortably. And I think Denmark's got enough defensively and a little bit going forward that you could see them scoring a couple nice goals as well. So this could go 2-1 both ways. You could even see a shutout and see one team just fully dominate. But for me, I think 2-1 Denmark's a fair result. Again, could go either way. When it comes to Italy and Austria, I think it's a little bit of a different story. I think Italy will win this one. I mean, the odds are heavily in favor of Italy. But I think it'll still be kind of close. I think Italy will be up 2-1, and the third goal will be something a bit later on, like the 86th, 87th minute. Italy, when they have to play a bit smaller competition in knockout rounds from the past, they kind of leave it up to the latter part of the game to make that big difference. And I think 2-1 Italy going into those final minutes is a fair result. And picking up an extra goal, maybe Austria goes too far attacking and Italy picks up an extra goal. So for the Sunday games, there's going to be Netherlands, Czech Republic, and then as well you've got Belgium and Portugal, which I think is the biggest game so far of the round of 16. I keep saying quarterfinals. I'm just losing it. So, for the first game, Netherlands, Czech Republic, I really see nothing but the Netherlands win. The Czech Republic could go and maybe make it interesting. And there could be an upset. And it would be an interesting upset, especially for that side of the bracket. But I think it's a game that the Netherlands will just comfortably win. They'll have high possession, create a bunch of chances, score in 1 or 2 goals. It's a pretty straightforward game. The second game, however, Belgium and Portugal. This could be easily the biggest game of the round of 16. And it's tough to predict. You've got Portugal, who are a very solid team. You have 2 of the most solid all-round teams that are in the Euros. Belgium might be a little weaker defensively than Portugal, but I think Belgium has a little bit of the edge in midfield, and I think they might have a minor edge in attack, because you do have Depay, you do have Depay is from Netherlands, I'm sorry. They oh dear God. They have Lukaku. They've got a few attacking midfielders on their team. I think this will go into extra time, and I think Belgium will just pull away with a result. You could see Portugal going and winning this and Ronaldo scoring a hat-trick, but I think Ronaldo might get one. But I do think Belgium at the end of the day just has that little bit more of an edge to go through. So for me, those are my 4 results for the first round of 16. Now we look at the other main 4 games of the round of 16. We've got Croatia and Spain, and France and Switzerland for the first 2 games on Monday. Looking at those games, I think we'll get the France one right out the way. Quite like the Netherlands game, France should be winning this pretty comfortably. I think Switzerland might give them a couple issues, and it might turn out a little like the Italy game, where I think France gets up 2-1, and Switzerland tries to get back into it, but it just ends up leading to another France goal. So I think 3-1's a fair result for them. Could also finish as a clean sheet for France. Very well likely. The other game could be quite interesting, I think. Spain and Croatia. I think Spain are the massive favorites, if I'm reading the odd part right. But Croatia, it's 2 teams that didn't really turn up in the group stage as much as I thought they would. And it's funny that they get to play each other, because one of them will have to go through. I think Croatia could give them trouble, and I have it going in extra time, simply because I think it could very well be Croatia's game as much as Spain's game. But I think just Spain's team and their quality that they do have is what's going to put them through over Croatia. I don't think they're going to win the game outright, but I do think that Spain will get through. And considering that you've already seen it here, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, and deserved hate, Tuesday's games, England, Germany, Sweden, Ukraine. Let's get the elephant out of the room. Yes, I have England to go through. I know it's England. It's a professional tournament. It's a big tournament. And they never really turn up. I know. But to counter it, has Germany really turned up in the Euros so far? Their best game, without a doubt, was against Portugal. But having a bad result against Hungary, maybe a little bit of a momentum swing. I don't know. I have it going to extra time, and I put and penalties, because it could be a situation of penalties. I feel like it'll go into extra time, and it'll be 2 teams that play defensive-minded, and they will try anything they can to break their defenses, and neither team will get anything done in that minutes. And they'll go to extra time, and for some odd reason, I think England will find a way to score a shifty goal. Whether it be off a corner, whether it be off like a free kick, a penalty. There's just some reason for me. I think England might win that game. It could go anyway. And looking at the other games, Sweden, Ukraine, two teams that, Sweden kind of deserves to be there. Ukraine, they're kind of there to make up numbers. I think Sweden will win. I think they've got enough talent in that team. 2-1's a fair result for them. I think it could be one of those games that you could see Sweden winning 2-0 or 1-0. But I just don't see enough from Ukraine to wonder why they would beat Sweden, especially seeing the group that Sweden went through. I think this is a game that Sweden can win comfortably. So, with all that being said, let's do a quarterfinals, a semifinals, and an actual finals, based off of the results that I've made from the previous round of 16. And now that we are over 20 minutes, I will try to make this kind of go by a little bit quicker, hopefully. So, being what I predicted for the round of 16, first two games, we've got Belgium, Italy, and France, Spain. Now, Belgium, Italy, along the lines of the Belgium-Portugal game, this will be the biggest game, I think, of the quarterfinals. It's two teams that, Italy at this point will be on, a 22-game winning streak. And not based on that game, but they could even go in being in the 12 games of a conceding streak. So Italy's coming in red hot, Belgium's coming in red hot. They both have similar groups where it wasn't that much difficulty to get out of. And I could see this game going in either direction. Italy could win 2-1, Belgium could win 2-1. It could be a goalless game. I think Belgium has the edge. I know Italy's good, they're talented, they've got kind of every position locked down, which is what you'd like to see, with the mix of a couple good superstars. For me, Belgium there's something about Belgium and some of the players that they have. And the minor edge is that Italy has a little bit of trouble playing out of the back. When they do play those smaller clubs, they try to play out of the back, and I think sometimes they get a little too fancy, and I think that might hurt them. And they might concede a goal early because of that, and mentally not be right because of it. So it could be a thing, but we'll see. Second game, France-Spain. 2-0. I've got France getting through. Again, Spain's got a great team. I know they do. But having no Real Madrid players, when you don't pick a player from one of the top two clubs from that nation, something is a little twisted, it seems. I know they have a lot of young guys that they want to put in with a lot of older players. I just don't see it. I don't see Spain doing that great. And France has got one of the most solid teams in the Euros, for me. So I think 2-0 France. It could be a 2-1 game. Could be I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game, because Spain does kind of play defensive, and France can play quite defensive. So I think 2-0 is a fair result. Now for the other two games, England and Sweden. I think whoever gets through between England and Germany from that round of 16 group will beat Sweden. However, I think in England's case, again, the little bit of it's knockout round time and pressure is on, I think England might scrape this one. It's going to be, I think England will win, but I think it'll be close. I think you might see England might be up 2-0 early, and Sweden might score a goal and really put England against the ropes to get a second one. Or you could see England just scrape a goal at the end to go in front if it's tied 1-1. But I do see that England game being interesting. Regardless of who makes it through, I think they will beat Sweden. But for this, I'll put England in front in this one. And for the fourth game, Netherlands against Denmark. Again, the whole side of the bracket on the right side is, you've got 2 or 3 good teams, and then the rest are all make-up numbers teams. For me, Netherlands are going to win this comfortably. I know Denmark are decent, but I think their run is done. After beating the Welsh, I don't think they're going to beat the Netherlands. And I think the Netherlands will get a high possession game. Again, they'll make a bunch of chances. I just can't see Netherlands losing this game. Alright, so we are almost there. We are in the semifinals now, where, according to the predictions, I've got Belgium and I've got France in the semis on one side, and I've got Holland, or Netherlands, and I've got England on the other. Again, we'll tackle the top one. I know about the bottom one, don't judge. We'll do the top one first. Belgium and France. It's another big game, and there comes a time, and it could happen, and I made my predictions already, so I'm not going to double back on them, but there comes a time where Belgium are playing, this is their third big team in a row. I know they get like almost a week to recover, or like, 4 days probably from this to recover. But you have to realize it's going to take a toll on players. You've just come against Portugal, you've gone and you've played Italy, and now you're playing France. And to be fair, all three of those teams are favorites to win, and you have to play them all. It's a terrible bracket to be on. Which side to be on? It's terrible to be on the side with Belgium, France, Italy, and everyone else. And Spain, it's just not good. But I do see Belgium winning again. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I think this one might be a game where France knows they have to take it to Belgium, and Belgium knows that they really have to take it to France to win. And you're going to see a lot of quick, dynamic playing. I think you'll see a lot of long balls, a lot of fast-paced play, and I think that'll create a lot of chances, a lot of goals. I see it going in extra time, and I kind of see Belgium winning in extra time. I see 3-2. I think it's a fair result. It could finish before extra time as well. It could go in the pens. But I do think that it's just that little bit of an edge, and there's always that little bit of an issue with teams that have just won it, and for them to go back and win it again. And for France winning the World Cup, you get that little bit of international hangover. It could be close, but I'll give it to Belgium. And then finally, Netherlands and England. I'll try to keep it short because I know that there's hate. Unless you're an English fan, I know there's going to be hate. It's the easiest bracket to be on. The right side of the bracket is the easiest thing to be a part of. If you're England or you're Germany, you are hoping that the Netherlands get upset, because it is the easiest bracket to get through. You don't play a top club. So Netherlands are your biggest issue after you beat Germany. And when they play them, I think Netherlands have a great team. I think the issue comes is, where do you think the Netherlands are good enough defensively? I know they've got a lot of good wing back options for attacking, but they don't have Van Dijk. And I know they have players that can do a decent job, but I think England are more well-rounded than them, and I think they can do a good enough job to keep Netherlands from scoring a lot. So for me, England are going to win. I don't know why I'm going to put England in the final, but it's really only because of the bracket they are in. I think if England are in any other side, like if they're in the other side of the bracket for any other team, if they had finished, second, and been in Croatia's place and played Spain, maybe they'll beat Spain, but then I don't think they beat France. So again, this is England being in the final only because of where they're at, not because of who they have. And finally, the Euro final that I've got predicted: Belgium to beat England. This game could go either way, and I know it's two teams that are a little bit different in comparison, but for me, the biggest thing you gotta look at is look who Belgium is playing. If England are going to win this game, it's going to be because Belgium need to make either a lot of team changes, and they're going to have to end up playing a couple worse players because of fitness. But I think Belgium have enough to win. For England, they do have to play off of Belgium's fitness. Belgium are going to come off playing Portugal, going off to play Italy, going off to play France, and if France doesn't make it, I would imagine it would be Spain. 3 really good games to have to play, and then to go into a final and play against another good team. I see Belgium winning, and it would be one of, I think, the best results in Euros history to go in knockout rounds and play against 4 favorites and win every single one. It's a very deserving win if they do make it that far and win the final. But yeah, I just don't see, this is going to be England's next biggest competition. Is you've beaten Germany, which is your toughest thing to do in that whole bracket. You've beat the Netherlands, you've beaten Sweden. Now you play a very, very talented team in Belgium. And I have what I've predicted as well, which is the goal scorers and when they score. And it's utter sweet chaos for English fans that I think they will actually go up 1-0 against Belgium. And then I think Belgium will England will try to play a bit more defensive and keep it tight in the back, and I think Belgium will just give it everything they've got and score a goal kind of midway through that second half, early to midway through the second half. And I see Lukaku or another main striker just scoring a goal with about 15 minutes left, and England are going to have to try to do everything they can to equalize, and they just can't. But you even see in Euro finals, a lot of players you don't think of scoring end up scoring. Like last Euros, Eder scored. You would figure it would be Ronaldo, but no, Eder scored. I think in this one, John Stones scores. I think England scored like a corner or some kind of free kick goal that a defender can get his head on. And I think for Belgium, I think Tielemans is the guy. I think another final goal for Tielemans could be the result. And then Lukaku, I think there has to be somebody in there that scores a goal who is a big name. And I think Lukaku's the guy to do it. And I think Lukaku might finish the top goal scorer as well. There is a very high chance it could happen. There's also a very high chance that someone from England could go and scoop it. You know, maybe a Raheem Sterling. It would be a weird one, but it could happen. Seeing as some of the teams they have to play, you never know. But, yeah. So this is going to be my Euro 2020 predictions and reactions to the group stage, to the knockouts. Hopefully, if all this were to happen, and pretty accurately were to happen, I would be scared. But we'll see how this all plays out. You know, it's a long knockout stage where I'm sure we could see all kinds of upsets, all kinds of injuries. You never know what player's going to get injured. And you never know what can really happen when you put good teams against good teams, and even good teams against somewhat mediocre teams. You can never really know what happens in the game of soccer, which makes it a lovely sport. But yeah, I'm confident enough in these predictions that I'm sure by tomorrow I'll have one of them wrong. Probably this first game. But we will wait and see. So thank you very much for watching. I know this video is long, and this will be the longest video on the channel that you will see probably ever. But thank you, and enjoy watching what hopefully is some of the best soccer that we've seen in a while.